We preface this by saying, at the time that we're recording this, Dominique Ducharme is still head coach of the Montreal Canadiens. We also know when Jeff Gordon was introduced to the media in his position with the Montreal Canadiens, he said that Dominique Ducharme would keep his job until the end of the year. We all know how the Canadiens have been since that press conference. Stu, will Dominique Ducharme remain head coach, or will he be fired before the end of the season?
If they don't fire him during this week-long bye week, they're not going to fire him. If you're going to make a coaching change, this is the perfect time to do it. I'm sure these guys have gone somewhere south if they're allowed with COVID, or they're on vacation for a week. If you're going to make a change, you do it now. You come back after the break with a new coach. You have a team meeting, obviously, with the new GM and Gordon and everybody, and you move forward you set some goals for the rest of the season, and you move on. If they don't do it now, I don't think they're going to do it. I'm like probably 80% don't think they're going to do it for a couple of reasons. One, Jeff Gordon saying that he was going to keep Ducharme. His job was safe for the rest of the season. And two, because I think Jeff Molson probably told Jeff Gordon that when Gordon took the job. Jeff Molson's still paying Claude Julien $5 million not to coach this year. He just gave Ducharme a 3-year, $5.1 million contract. He's got $10 million there wrapped up in head coaches as of now as it is. I don't think he wants to add a third. I don't think, as I mentioned on previous shows, an easy fix would be to make Luke Richardson the interim head coach to the end of the season, but that starts another language issue, which I don't think Jeff Molson wants to get involved with. So to cut a long story short, as I said off the start, I think if Ducharme still has his job after this week-long break is over, he's going to be here until the end of the season.
Yeah, and I don't think it's really worth it at this stage to remove Dominique Ducharme. I mean, the damage is done, if you will. I think as players start coming back from injury, they're going to have their group back, and I think that they're going to keep Ducharme in place till the end of the year, and obviously reassess what his track record is. But I don't foresee something happening like this. Mentioning about finding a replacement for the rest of the year, not easily done. That works for the French and English side. So I think they'll just ride it out, get their group back, and then they'll assess. And if obviously the way it's gone, it continues to finish on such a poor note, I think it'd be a no-brainer at the end of the year and say, listen, we're not happy with what's going on the ice, and we need to make changes. So it's going to be an interesting finale and the upcoming season.
Yeah, I think they're going to ride it out with him till the end of the year, and then that's when they're going to make their changes. I think it'll just give them more time to find the proper coach for this team. And I think maybe that was one of the mistakes they made last year when they fired Claude Julien, is that they just gave it to Dominique Ducharme. And was he the best guy to take over the coaching duties? We're now seeing no, that was not the case. And I don't think they want to make that mistake again and have another situation where you're looking for another coach, have another coach under contract, and have to pay him for sitting at home. So I think they just realize that this year's a waste. The trade deadline's coming up. Players are going to be moving. And it's just like, let's ride it out. And then in the offseason, put together a plan, find someone who's actually going to lead this team and help it through the rebuild. And that will be the case.
Yeah, so I think when Bergevin hired Ducharme as an assistant, he also hired him to be the next head coach whenever Claude's time would come up. I think he wanted to be prepared and have somebody ready when that happened, as opposed to with Michel Therrien when it was Claude Julien became available, and all of a sudden he made a quick decision to fire Therrien because he didn't know how much longer Julien was going to be available. But then they also had Joel Bouchard here, and now he's gone. So you're right. I mean, there's limited candidates with the language issue who the next head coach could be. I mentioned that's why I don't think Luke Richardson would be put in as an interim head coach, even though to me it would be makes sense if that's what you wanted to do, if you want to make a coaching change. But I'm sure Gorton and Hughes have spoken with Molson, and maybe they have somebody in mind who might be the next head coach. Maybe that guy isn't available right now and will be available after the season's over. So again, I think it's unlikely that Dominique Ducharme gets fired. But I'd be shocked if he's back behind the bench next season.
Well, here's what I'm thinking, though. Say if the Canadiens keep Dominique Ducharme and they stay true to their word that he stays on until the end of the season, but as players start to come back, like we already saw Brendan Gallagher and Paul Byron make their returns. Carey Price, we don't know the odds on when he'll come back, but he's trying to return to the team. Who knows when Joel Edmondson will come back? What if, as the veterans come back, the team plays like a little bit better than what they were playing at this point? Like, is there any way that like Dominique Ducharme could kind of turn that into a way to kind of keep his job for next season?
I have a problem with that, because no matter who the personnel that you have in your lineup, you as a coach has to hold each and every one of those guys to perform up to their capabilities. And
Very good point.
Doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be the most talented, but you have to show up and you have to dig in, really care about a job well done. For the whole year, the inconsistency in that department is blatant and unacceptable, and the coach has to be held accountable for not making those guys toe the line, become accountable, and play up to their capabilities, no matter what the problem is with this particular player. But they have to be they have to be more involved, and they have to be more caring. And been there before when that happens, that they don't really care. Guess what happens.
And if you look back at last season when he took over, this team didn't have this magic turnaround. They almost didn't make the playoffs, and they just kind of got lucky that things went well for them in the playoffs, and people have short-term memory, and that has helped Dominique Ducharme. But if they didn't, he probably wouldn't have had the interim tag taken away from him. Maybe they would have started to look again to see who would take over as the head coach during the offseason if the Canadiens never made the playoffs and went to the Cup final.
Yeah, you're right, Jess. And I think it was Game 6 against the Leafs when they were outshot 13-2 in overtime, facing elimination, and they won because of Carey Price. If they lose that game, you wonder if Dominique Ducharme comes back this season. But how do you get rid of a coach who took you to the Stanley Cup final? You can't, right? So that's why he got the contract extension. But you're right. I mean, they didn't really respond to him last season when he took over from Claude Julien, and they limped into the playoffs. There's been a lot of injury issues this year. A lot of things going against Ducharme. Key players gone. But as Rick said, the effort level, they look like guys who don't want to play for their coach, and that's not good, obviously.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's the biggest thing, and Rick made that point. Even if you can point to all these different things, whether it's COVID, the practice things that kind of plagued last year's team heading into the playoffs, and this year with the COVID again and injuries and stuff, yeah, there's been too many nights where the players just don't look as if they're that inspired. So, yeah, I think if you're the Canadiens, you have to think about that when assessing Dominique Ducharme's job performance. And you watching this video can also do that in our comment section. Also, if you care to, leave us questions that we may be able to get to in a bonus video. Also, subscribe to the Hockey Inside Out show on YouTube. Subscribe to the Hockey Inside Out newsletter, and go to hockeyinsideout.com to watch our full episode from earlier this week.